This ruling has effectively, and for now at least, killed ATF's pistol brace.
And the implementation of your rule, did Congress pass a law? What changed?
Turns law-abiding gun owners into felons is a result of unelected bureaucrats simply enacting a new regulation.
Now, there has been several injunctions already issued by multiple courts.
Your right to own a gun can also be restricted.
Here's the amount of gun violence that has happened. I think we're reaching a tipping point where we're about to hit desensitization to gun violence.
Landmark ruling halts ATF. In a significant legal development, a recent ruling has dealt a substantial blow to the ATF's pistol brace rule, effectively putting it on hold. This ruling, stemming from the case of Berettas v. ATF, unfolded in a United States District Court for the Northern District of Texas in the Amarillo Division. The court's decision is particularly noteworthy as it marks a departure from previous injunctions that were limited to specific plaintiffs or members of particular Second Amendment organizations. In this instance, the court issued a nationwide injunction against the ATF's pistol brace rule, a move that has widespread implications. The case, which revolves around a variety of challenges to the ATF's rule, primarily hinges on the court's interpretation of the Administrative Procedure Act, APA. The plaintiffs in the case raised several substantive challenges, asserting that the rule violates the Second Amendment, encroaches on the separation of power and non-delegation principles, conflicts with the National Firearms Act's definition of a rifle, is arbitrary and capricious under the APA, and is void for vagueness. However, the court astutely honed in on a precedent set by the case of Mock v. Garland, where a similar challenge was posed against the ATF's pistol brace rule.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, I find it interesting that my colleagues have no problem with the ATF going outside its boundaries.
This ruling has effectively, and for now at least, killed ATF's pistol brace.
This rule redefined firearms with stabilizing braces as short-barreled rifles.
And the implementation of your rule, did Congress pass a law? What changed?
In that case, the court had already enjoined the rule, stating that the plaintiffs were likely to prevail, because the rule clearly violates the APA. Drawing from this precedent, the current court swiftly disposed of the case, avoiding an exhaustive examination of all challenges raised by the plaintiffs. Despite the multitude of valid and legitimate constitutional claims, especially concerning the Second Amendment, the court opted for a streamlined approach. Citing existing case laws, the court emphasized that if an issue could be resolved on grounds other than the constitutionality of a statute, the path should be taken. In this instance, the court found that the rule's violation of the APA provided a sufficiently robust basis for its decision. The court underscored the principle that constitutional questions should be sidestepped when alternative grounds for disposition are available. This approach aligns with the Supreme Court's guidance, which encourages lower courts to conserve judicial resources by avoiding unnecessary exploration of constitutional matters. The ruling's brevity, encapsulated in a concise 9-page document, reflects the court's judicious focus on the pivotal issue at hand, the violation of the APA. By relying on the Mock v. Garland precedent, the court swiftly arrived at the conclusion that the ATF's pistol brace rule is, for now, inoperative on a nationwide scale. This ruling is a noteworthy development in the ongoing legal landscape surrounding arms regulations, particularly those related to stabilizing braces. As the legal community grapples with the implication of this decision, it is likely to spark further debates and discussion about the intersection of administrative law and Second Amendment rights. Nationwide injunction on ATF's rule. In grappling with intricate questions of constitutional and statutory interpretation, the court confronted a pivotal decision in Berettas v. ATF. The court astutely recognized that delving into complex constitutional or statutory nuances without impacting the case's outcome wasn't an efficient use of judicial resources. Consequently, the court opted for a straightforward approach, asserting that the ATF's pistol brace rule was in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act, APA. The decision not only simplified the legal terrain, but also sent a clear message. The rule's demise was rooted in a violation of administrative law rather than delving into constitutional debates. The court's rationale underscored the futility of protracted legal proceedings when a clear and concise path existed. By focusing on the APA violation, the court cut through the legal intricacies surrounding Second Amendment challenges, rendering the case more manageable and its resolution more expeditious.
Turns law-abiding gun owners into felons is a result of unelected bureaucrats simply enacting a new regulation.
That's not for us to regulate. If somebody we wrote the rule to make it easy to comply with.
Now, there has been several injunctions already issued by multiple courts.
That's not how it's supposed to work in our great country. Congress writes the laws and the executive branch enforces them.
For seasoned followers of the legal developments surrounding pistol brace regulations, the court's reliance on a two-part test for injunctive relief was not surprising. The court reaffirmed that the plaintiffs had not only demonstrated a likelihood of prevailing on the merits, primarily due to the APA violation, but also established irreparable harm. In dismantling the government's contention that no irreparable harm existed, the court pointed to the Mock case's precedent. Just as in Mock, where plaintiffs faced non-recoverable compliance costs, the Brito plaintiffs similarly faced the threat of financial burdens associated with the pistol brace rule. Crucially, the court rejected the government's argument that preventing enforcement of the rule would prevent circumvention of the National Firearms Act, NFA. Acknowledging the government's concern about potential circumvention, the court brushed aside this argument. It contended that the court was not insensitive to the ATF's worry, but emphasized that the overriding issue was at hand was the rule's violation of the APA. By framing the matter in this context, the court neutralized the government's circumvention argument, grounding its decision in the administrative legality of the rule rather than engaging in a broader debate about potential regulatory evasion. In a poignant conclusion to its ruling, the court justified the nationwide injunction by emphasizing the absence of injury to the government or the public at large, referring to the precedent set in Garland.
Okay, reclaiming my time because it's pretty obvious you're misleading people here.
And so even though there are multiple challenges to ATF's pistol brace rule,
Your right to own a gun can also be restricted.
The court asserted that the logical outgrowth test had not been met, and thus the APA violation necessitated setting aside the rule as unlawful. This reasoning rendered enforcement of the final rule inconsequential, dispelling any argument that the public or government would suffer harm from an injunction. In essence, the court's analysis crystallized into a pragmatic stance. By swiftly addressing the core issue of APA violation, the court not only streamlined the legal process, but also delivered a ruling that prioritized the efficient use of judicial resources. This decision in Brito v. ATF marks a significant milestone in the ongoing legal saga surrounding pistol brace regulations, offering clarity on the role of administrative law in shaping firearm policies. In rapid, the court's ruling in Brito v. ATF has delivered a decisive blow to the ATF's pistol brace rule, primarily based on the violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. This legal development adds another layer to the complex and evolving landscape of firearms regulation in the United States. Court halts pistol brace. In the legal landscape marked by gamesmanship and attempts to navigate around the National Firearms Act's NFA restrictions on short-barreled rifles, SPRs, the government's regulatory attempts face a stern judicial response. The court, cognizant of potential challenges in justifying regulations, made it clear that the government couldn't merely assert an important interest to support its actions. Despite the likelihood of protests when constitutional rights are perceived to be compromised, the court emphasized the need for a lawful approach. Over time, the evolution of technology and the passage of time can unveil latent ambiguities in statutes, bringing forth the need for a nuanced interpretation. The government's final line of defense often revolves around the potential cost in lives due to what it deems a ludicrous ruling. The court, in response, acknowledged the government's concerns about the public safety, especially in the aftermath of tragic mass shootings.
Gun violence does not discriminate. It happens everywhere and all the time. Here's the amount of gun violence that has happened. I think we're reaching a tipping point where we're about to hit desensitization to gun violence. It has been happening everywhere all the time because you, Congress, have done nothing to prevent it.
However, it firmly asserted that such concerns must be addressed within the bounds of the law. The court recognized the salutary policy goals embedded in the rule, emphasizing its intention to protect vulnerable members of society. Yet, it held that these policies' goals must be pursued through lawful means. The court's decision therefore rested on the assertion that the pistol brace rule in its current form did not align with lawful procedures. Despite sympathizing with the government's concern, the court maintained a stance that regulatory actions must adhere to legal standards. In response to the multifaceted arguments presented by the government, the court made a decisive move. It granted the motion and stayed the rule in its entirety. This legal maneuver effectively enjoined the pistol brace rule on a nationwide basis. The implication of this decision is far-reaching, impacting not only those who had previously registered under an amnesty provision or were part of specific organizations involved in legal battles, but also extending to all lawful and responsible gun owners who had acquired these firearms legally. For those who suddenly found themselves unknowingly in possession of what was deemed an unlawful NFA item, the court's decision came as a reprieve. The ruling in the case Brito v. ATF became the linchpin in this legal development. The court's action, however, is not the end of the road, as the United States government is expected to appeal, anticipating further legal developments. Stakeholders in this complex and evolving legal landscapes will be closely watching for the next chapter in this ongoing saga. In summary, the court's decision to enjoin the pistol brace rule on a nationwide basis marks a significant development in the ongoing debate over firearms regulation, balancing constitutional rights, technological advancements, and public safety concerns. The court's ruling sets the stage for continued legal battles and discussions surrounding the intersection of administrative law and the Second Amendment. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.